First, we need a worksheet, what we are going to use as a dashboard for our app. Done. I named it as NASDAQ. This sheet also needs to include the variables we want to use in this app. So like every exchange tracker, you have to be able to switch between the different currencies. So let's add those variables. We need a from currency and a to currency as well. The next variable I need to add is an option to select whether I want to work with digital currencies or with the physical ones. So FOREX versus cryptocurrencies. And let's name it type. One more row. And I'm also going to use a support sheet to store the dynamic data. So the second main part of this app is the currency symbols. Done. This is a simple Excel table including all of the currencies from the world, the name of the currency, and I also added an individual value related to the row items, and you will see in a minute why. The table is named properly, it's called physical currency. The third main part was an option to switch between the different currency types, so crypto versus forex. We got a sheet for our dynamic data sources, and the last thing we need is an API. An API which returns a JSON document back into our Power Query and provides us a real-time connection to the dataset. And that's done. I will show you later where you can find this information, and you can study all the API documentation if you want to. But for this example, I collected all the information what we need today. This API provides us 4 different requests for cryptocurrencies as well as for the forex exchange rates. I created this proper Excel table to store my data. It's named properly as API URL. The first column is an individual ID, which is not more than the combination of the request type and the request name. I also added a description what I found on the website, which makes easier to understand what the API request does exactly. The last column of this table includes the URL address, which is basically the function what the API does for us. So when we send the request to the API engine, this will define that what data we will get back. And if you look at closer the functions, these are very standard and almost the same. And it's very easy to find what are the variables we need to dynamically drive with our Excel file. So if I double click on this text, I can see that I have a variable for the from currency and the to currency as well. And it obviously shows me where I have to use my API key. You can easily request that API key for free on the website, but for now let's focus on how we will build that structure in the Excel to make it dynamic and the live data connection to the NASDAQ dataset. I head back to my main sheet, and as I said, since it's an API, we'll need an API key, so we will need a variable for our API key as well. Let's name it for demo until we request it from the website. The request type should come from my support sheet where I store dynamically my data in this table, right? Because if I add a new request type to my table, I want to get it dynamically on my main sheet. And in order to do that, the easiest way in Excel, if I go to the data tab and I use simply the data validation and a simple drop down. And as many times I used, I'm going to use the indirect function again. I will need the table name, which is the underscore API URL, open angle brackets, and I need to type the column I want to pull from that table, and that was the request type. Close angle brackets, comma, brackets, and I just close my formula and hit OK. And here we go, I got the 2 different request types. And now I'm going to add one more data validation list which will store the name of the request. And this must be a dependent validation list because when I select the cryptocurrencies, then I want to get only the name of the cryptocurrencies. And I'm going to use a very simple trick instead of using an offset function in the data validation list. So what I do, I go back to my support sheet, I zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to choose a column somewhere here to use a very simple Excel function. And that one will look like this, equal sign, filter. Now I need to select the array, which is actually the column I want to get back as a result. And that's going to be the request name column. Then the next argument is the include. So basically the condition I want to set, and this will look like this. The request type, if equal, And now I need to go back to my main sheet. So the request type is equal with this value from the data validation list. I'm going to fix the value with the F4 key. Then I want to get back the request name, comma. If it's empty, then I want a blank cell. I close the formula and I hit enter. And here we go. I got the dynamic filtered range based on that dynamic validation list. And what I do now, I select the entire G column, I go to the Formulas tab, hit Name Manager, and I'm going to create a proper named range. And I'm going to name it as Request Name. Hit OK, done. I can close the window, I go back to my main sheet, I select this cell, data, data validation, list, indirect function one more time, and the name of the range I just created. Hit OK, done. The cryptocurrencies are selected from the type, so if I select the name, it should bring me only the options from the cryptocurrencies. But if I select the FOREX, it should bring me the same. Obviously, if you look at the table, both types have exactly the same request names. But if I change something in my table, like this, and I go back to my main sheet, then this is gonna be updated automatically. The next thing I need to get is also a data validation list with the currencies. It's gonna be very easy. I select the table. This table is named as physical currency. I can copy the name, go back to the main sheet, data tab, data validation, list, the indirect function with the table name, open angle brackets because I want to get back a specific column, and that's gonna be the individual ID. The individual ID in this table is not more than the combination of the currency symbol and the currency name. Why is it important? I'll show you. I go back to the main sheet. If I open up this drop down, I can see the actual symbol and the name as well. But if I'm looking for something, I can simply start typing the value in the cell and it will automatically filter the values according to my search value. Let's choose USD and I can simply just copy and paste the same cell into the two currency because I need exactly the same currencies. Let's format my area a little bit. Done. And now we can finally start working with the API. Let's add a new variable, name it URL. Format a bit, and in this cell I want to get the dynamically created URL which will drive my API request. And now I want to use an XLOOKUP to get the URLs from the table. My lookup value must be the combination of the type and the name. The lookup array is going to be on my support sheet, which is my individual ID column because that's where I have the request type and name combined. I'm going to select the column. The return array is the URL column, and I don't care about the rest. And as I said, each one of them has a structure. So if I change from FOREX to cryptocurrency, it changes the URL as well based on the data I store on the support sheet. And now I need to find out which portion of these tags I need to change. And I show you the easiest technique right now. I'm going to copy and paste only the value into a different cell. I double click in the cell, and in case of the cryptocurrency, I can select the text until the two currency section because the symbol of the cryptocurrency is going to be the same all the time. So I'm going to copy this, paste in another cell, and I simply just count how long this text is. It's 53 characters. And if you look at the rest of the data, that's exactly the same in each API request, which is not more than the API key. So I do not even need to change it. What I'm gonna do, I'm going to repeat the process for all the cryptocurrency names. I got a daily request, copy paste value, select everything before the two currency, paste, and I just copy down the formula. Next one, weekly, same process. And the last one is the monthly. Here we go. Then I simply just copy these numbers. I go back to my main sheet and I add this number to my table. Now I'm gonna name it as got. Done. Then I go back to my main sheet. I can delete these data and I'm going to do the same for the FOREX, but this is different because the from and the to currency is going to change as well. Not only the to currency like when we use the cryptocurrency. So what I do is the same. Control C, paste the value. I need everything before the from currency, paste, and it seems like the rest of the code is the same in each URL. So the to symbol and the API key. Then I select the daily option, copy paste, done, weekly, copy, paste, select, done. And the last one is the monthly. Copy, paste, select, and paste one more time. Then I'm going to copy the data, support sheet, and I insert here. Then I go back to my main sheet, I can remove this whole thing, and I will need to modify my XLOOKUP a little bit. So this is the entire URL I get back by the XLOOKUP, and I need only X number of characters from the left hand side. So I'm gonna add the left formula before the XLOOKUP, then I would need the number of characters, right? And what I do, I simply just select the entire XLOOKUP, I copy, I paste. The lookup array is going to be the same, but the return array should be the newly added column called cut. I close angle bracket, I close the entire formula, and I hit enter. Voila, I got the function code from the URL. If I change from FOREX to cryptocurrency, it changes as well. Let's speed up this tutorial. So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to select this cell, I'm going to hit name manager, I need a proper named range. I'm going to name it as dynamic URL, hit OK, I can close the window. I go to the data tab, cell is still selected, hit from table range. I imported my data to the query editor, I'm going to name it properly as dynamic URL, hit enter. It promoted the headers automatically, I don't want that, I don't want either this one, remove this one. I'm going to select the cell value, right click and hit drill down, and I created a variable in the Power Query. I can go to the home tab, close and load to. I don't want to load the data yet, only create connection, hit OK, done. So now it's time to request the API key. And the website you are looking for is the Alpha Vantage. It's a pretty cool website which provides real-time access to stock market data from NASDAQ via this website. And this website offers a bunch of API solutions, and you can find a lot of data like the USA real GDP, GDP per capita, or even you can check the unemployment rate in the United States. Under the documentation tab you can study the entire API capabilities. But now let's hit get free API key. You fill up everything with the details and you hit get free API key. Once you got your API key, you just simply place it in this cell, hit enter, select the cell, formulas, name manager, and we need again a proper named range. Hit OK, close the window, data tab from table range. It's named properly, it auto formatted again. I remove these two steps, select the value, right click, drill down, I got the second variable. Home tab, close and load to, only create connection, hit OK. Let's work with the first one, cryptocurrency exchange rates. I go back to the documentation, I find the cryptocurrencies, exchange rates, and I can see the entire URL address. And as you see, the name of the website is the first parameter before the API function. I simply just copy the full URL, back to Excel, get data, launch Power Query Editor, right click on the query pane, new query, other sources from web. I paste the URL, hit OK. I got my demo data, let's name it properly, like crypto exchange, hit enter. I'm not gonna do anything with the data right now. Home tab, close and load to, only create connection, hit OK. And I will need to import these two variables as well. So I select the drop down, formulas, name manager, new, I name it as from, hit OK, new. The next one is the to currency, the reference is the other drop down, hit OK, done. Then I select the first drop down, data tab from table and range. Close and load to, only create connection, hit OK, and I import the last drop down. Let's transform the data a little bit. I select the from first, I remove the automatically applied steps. Once I remove the applied steps, I need to transform my data a little bit because I need only the symbol. I select the column, and from the home tab I choose split column by delimiter. Then I choose custom, and the delimiter sign is the hashtag for me. Hit OK, I can remove this column, hit remove. Select the cell value, right click, drill down, and I made a variable. And I'm going to just simply repeat the process for the to value as well. Done. Then I go back to my API query, I open up the editor, and I can start adding my variables. So as I said, the first part is the same in every query until the function equals sign. So what I do, double quotes, that's a separated text, ampersand, so I'm concatenating with the dynamic variables I created, and the first variable is my dynamic URL, which is coming from the XLOOKUP function. Then ampersand again, double quotes. So for the cryptocurrency, I said the front currency is gonna be the same, it's Bitcoin, so I can separate here. Ampersand, I can remove the to currency, and I enter the name of the variable, to ampersand double quotes. And now I need to add my API key, and it will look like this. Double quote after the equal sign, ampersand, I can remove this text with the demo, and I enter API key, select, and then I just simply hit enter. And here we go. Nothing changed because the text has been replaced with my dynamic values. And what I do now, I simply just select the record and I can see what values it brings back. Then I hit record and I choose under the convert table, hit into table. Once it's done, I can go back to Excel, close and load to, only create connection, hit OK. Now I right click on my query, hit load to, table, and I'm going to select the I2 cell to insert it. I hit OK and voila, I got my data. I select the table design, let's choose another format like this one, and now it works dynamically. So I previously selected the Chinese yuan. What if I select something else like the US dollar? Then I go to the data tab and I hit refresh all, and here we go. It updated my table. That's done. And now I'm going to show you an awesome trick how you can switch between different query tables with this dependent dropdown. Because if I change the actual query name, it won't work, because that query is designed for the Bitcoin exchange rate. So let me show you the trick. I close the error, I can remove the table, hit yes, open up the query pane, then I change back my variable to the exchange rate table, right click, edit, I can refresh my preview, then I go to the view tab, advanced editor, I copy the entire M code, I just simply hit done, then I open up a notepad, I paste my code there, then I go back to the query editor, right click on my query and hit delete. Once that's done, home, close and load, and I'm going to record a macro. And I'm going to show you the easiest way to automate a Power Query. I go to the developer tab and I hit record macro. I'm going to name my macro as crypto exchange, hit OK, then I go back to my notepad, I copy my M code, I go back to Excel, data, get data, launch Power Query editor, right click, new query, other sources, and blank query. Then I select the view tab, advanced editor, I replace the entire initial code and I simply hit done. I'm not going to worry about the name anymore. I hit home, close and load to table, existing worksheet, and I'm going to select the H2. I simply just hit OK. Then I go to the table design tab, I choose the design I like, then I stop the recording. Either I select this icon or I go to the developer tab and I hit stop recording. And voila, we recorded a macro which is creating a query for us. I open up the modules, module 1, I can remove the garbage, and as you see, I was able to create a Visual Basic code which will automatically create me a query table based on my dependent dropdown. And the only thing I do, I simply just repeat the process for all the query tables to create those Visual Basic codes. Okay, once I created all my Visual Basic code to create those query tables using the API requests, I simply just select the name of the macro and I'll start saving them in the Excel. Okay, once it's done, I'm going to select the values. Be careful for the order. I copied them in the proper order. I head back to the support sheet and I'm going to extend my source table with the macro names. I'm going to name it as macro, then I head back to my main sheet. I can remove these details and I'm going to add a new field named macro, and this time I'm going to use a VLOOKUP to find my value. I need a combination of the type and the request, comma, then I head back to my support sheet and I'll start selecting from the column A until the column G where I have the macro names. That's the 7th column in my range, so comma 7, comma 0, I want an exact match, hit enter. And here we go, I got the name of the macro which will create me the query table automatically once I select my type from the dropdown. The other thing I can also add is just simply go to the home tab, I'm going to merge this range, equal sign, and VLOOKUP one more time. Type, ampersand, name, comma, support sheet, and from the table I want to pull the description this time. I hit enter, here we go, let's format, I'm gonna add the border, I can even align these columns, and I'm going to format this area too. Right click, format cells, border, left hand side top, hit OK. I can even select the entire range to reduce the size, because this is gonna be the place always where I insert my tables with the macro. And if I start using the drop down, then the values are changing properly. And the last thing I need to do is just to add a button. I go to the developer tab, insert ActiveX controls, and I select the button icon. I place it there. Once I placed, right click properties, and from the properties I'm going to name it like get data, hit enter. I can close the properties, the design mode is on under the developer tab, and I will need to write a very simple Visual Basic code, and it will look like this. First I need a variable, and that's gonna be my macro name, and I'm going to use it as a string because that comes from a cell. And the macro name equals with a specific cell from my sheet called NASDAQ. Double quotes, underscore, I can enter the name of the sheet, close the brackets, dot, cells, and now I need to know the coordinate values of that cell, and that's 10, 4, let's double check, I go back to the Excel, that's the D10, so the 4th column and the 10th row, I go back, first I always need a row, so that was the 10, and the 4, and that's it. And the only thing I do, I enter call, that means run the specific macro I want. I want you to run the macro name. We are almost done, but since it's a loop, we have to be careful with the area we work with. And the only thing I need to add to my code is this. On the sheets NASDAQ, I want to delete the query1 table with all the objects, clear the sections, the actual range, and I want to also delete the query table itself. And our code is done. I'm going to save it, I close the Visual Basic editor, I turn off the design mode, I save my workbook, and don't forget, your workbook must be minimum an XLSM extension or an XLSB. I prefer to use the XLSB, which is the binary version. And now let's see how does my app works. Let's say I'm going to select the FOREX currency. Let's say I want to get the real-time change rate, USD Euro, that's fine, and I hit get data. Okay, so the mistake I made, that's very dumb. I'm gonna explain. Let's go back to the Visual Basic editor, and here we go. One thing I forgot to add is the error treatment. So basically, if there is no table or query table created, then there is nothing to be deleted, right? So what I said, if there is an error with this line, then please go to the next step. The second thing is that the call function is not able to work with a string, so I had to use another code which is called application.run. Then I entered the variable name which includes the macro name, and that's it. I close the window and I'll show you one more time. So I'm going to select, let's say it's FOREX this time. I'm going to select cryptocurrency, let's say daily, and I hit get data. It confirmed the macro name. I hit OK and it starts loading my data, and voila, I dynamically got my cryptocurrency data in Excel, and the data comes from the NASDAQ system. Let's try another one. I select the FOREX value. Let's say I want to get a real-time data, the USD value compared to Chinese yuan. Then I simply just hit get data, macro name confirmed, I hit OK, and I dynamically got my exchange rate data. I hope you learned a lot from this video, and I will see you next time.